Hey guys, welcome back. Today is the first video we're going to do in our Learning with City Skylines videos. In these videos, we'll look at stuff that you guys might be learning in school, and it's stuff I use to help my own son find new things more interesting. So today, what we're going to learn about is we're going to introduce you to concepts of geometry. Some of you might have learned about geometry already, and some of you may have not. But if you have not, geometry is a type of mathematics where we learn about shapes and spaces. Now, remember when you were an itty bitty tiny baby person, and mom or dad, or mom and dad, taught you about shapes like circles, squares, diamonds. In geometry, we use those shapes and others to do all sorts of wonderful things, and we learn some new ideas. Now that you're older, you can understand things about shapes, like how they are made, how we measure them, and the different ways that we use them in real life. So in today's video, we're going to cover 4 things. And the first of those we're going to learn about is points. So let's learn about points with city skylines. Now, I'm guessing, well, I don't need to guess. I know you are all very smart. So the word point is something you already know. Like if a parent or a teacher was to ask you, hey, what is a point? You'd probably take out a pen, marker, or pencil or something, right? And a piece of paper and make a little dot. Well, if you did that, you'd be 100% right. That is a point. Points are just dots. In geometry, we use points to show a location of something, specifically on a shape. If your friend asked you to show the location of something on a map, which could be a circle, a square, a sphere, or some other shape, you would mark that location with a point, right? So just imagine that we had this huge tile. This is our map, this little tile here. And I asked you to find the location within this square where there's water. Just any location. You might point here, you make a point. And that location, we would call that a point in geometry, it's just a point. Okay, so, and an example of using a point is we have to learn a little bit more about another concept. And to understand that, we're going to use roads in city skylines. And the thing we're going to be learning about is a word in geometry we call line. Now you might think that lines are something odd and something that kids already know, even before 3rd grade. Well, you're probably right. You probably do know what a line is, but you probably are not familiar with how we use lines in math. And a line is going to be a little bit different than what you think. If I were to ask you, city skylines, to make a line, you would probably draw something like this, right? You would draw a line. That would be your line. And if I asked you, and by the way, this is an awesome line, and probably the best line ever. And if I asked you where your line begins and ends, you would probably point here and here. And even in city skylines, there's points, right? Here and here. Well, you're right, but not all the way, because it's a trick question. In geometry, a line is actually a straight path of points that goes forever in both directions. So think of it like this. A line continues to go on and 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 on with no stop. So just like here, we have these little errors in city skylines saying, hey, you need to connect that road. That line's going in forever, right? And it's going on forever to the left. That's what a line is in geometry. It's a straight path of points, and it goes on forever. So this would be a line, both directions forever. Remember that the next time someone asks you to measure a line. You can tell them, I'm sorry, but that's impossible because a line never ends. But what about the shapes that we see every day, or even the shapes that we made just now, like this? You might say to yourself, well, that's a line. It looks exactly like a line. And like I said, you're not completely wrong, because we deal with lines all the time. It's just we aren't calling them by the right name. Think about a table. If you're at home at your breakfast table, you might look at one side of the table, and that's a line. You can trace it, right? And it definitely has an end. If you were to have a cup of water and you pushed it, and you kept pushing it from the left to the right, or from the right to the left, it would absolutely fall. It would crash. It doesn't go on forever. Again, you guys are super smart, and if you're already thinking that, you're way, way ahead. What you're talking about, what you're thinking about when you think about a line, is actually another part of geometry we call line segments. To understand line segments, think about a table. The table has four sides, right? Or, you know what, let's use a road. Let's know the road has four sides. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's a road. Our road has four sides. And in each corner, let's imagine, there's a point. And you can actually see the points if we keep this on here. See, 1, 2, 3, 4 in each corner, right? After you have noticed these points, you'd have a square, and each corner of that square would be a point, just like up here. A point is just a location. So on this example, a point is just the location of the corners of our square here, of our rectangle. Well, fancy smarty pants. The line between these 2 points, or any 2 points, is called a line segment. This is called a line segment. Let's give each point of our 4 corners a letter. So let's say this is A, B, C, and D. That makes it simple, right? A, B, C, and D. We now know that we can drive from one point to the other, like A to B, or A to C, or C to D, or D to B, right? But we have to stop. If we're driving from A to B, we have to stop, right? This line, this thing that we might want to call a line, ends, right? A to B, this is where B ends. If we keep driving, we're going to go off the road. We're not part of that line segment anymore. That's what makes it different. Remember up here, the lines go on forever in both directions. But in a line segment, we have 2 points. And in our example, we have A, B, C, D, right? Okay, so now we know about points, lines, and line segments, right? In geometry, we have one more thing to talk about, and that's called a ray. In geometry, a ray is a kind of like a line and a line segment together. Let's review lines again. Remember, a line is something that goes forever in both directions. So in our example up here, our one-way road goes all the way down there, and we're imagining it keeps going, and our one-way road goes left and keeps going and going. That's a line. It never ends. Well, a ray is similar to a line in that at one side it doesn't end. And the way we make a line, or a ray, is to draw a line but start at a point. So let's take our square here, and we're going to take this point. This is A, B, C, D. So we're going to take our point D, and we're going to draw a ray. That is a ray. This one we just made here is a ray. We know it has a beginning. It's C at the corner here, but does it have an end? Nope, it doesn't. It doesn't have an end, so that's why I said it's like a line segment. Remember, a line segment has a beginning and an end. It has a point that it begins and a point that it stops. A regular line does not. It goes on forever. This line goes on forever. In geometry, we're just taking little parts of that line, right? And that's a line segment. Then we create a ray. Remember, a ray is like a mix between a line segment and a line, because at one end it has a point, it has a location. At the other end, it doesn't end. It doesn't end, it just keeps going. So if you were driving, you go from this point, which is A, B, C. So from C, you can just keep driving C all the way down to the end of the universe. That's what a ray is. Now, can you think of something else that's a good example of a ray? Probably something you always hear when talking about rays or rays of sunlight. A good example, to be sure, but just make sure you don't look at the sun. Look at the picture of the sun. And if it's a sunny day, you'll see the camera or the picture that was taken by the camera. The rays are shining out in all directions. That's exactly what a ray is based on. Well, not based on, but that's what a ray is. It's pointing out in all directions. But remember, we can't tell where a sun ray ends exactly, just like we can't tell where this ray ends. We know where it begins, just like a sun. It starts at the sun and goes out, just like our square here. We know it starts at these points A, B, C, and D, but we don't know where these rays end. That's what geometry is. That's how we measure shapes. So let's look at it one more time. We have a line, right? A line is a shape, or a line cannot be measured. A line goes on in all directions forever. Forever. It goes in directions forever. Then we have a line segment, which we can measure, right? A line segment is like this. This is a line segment. It has a beginning. That actually doesn't have a beginning. It has a beginning and an end, right? Point A to point B. And then a ray, we actually already drew a ray. We know it has a beginning, but it doesn't have an end, right? We know the point, the location it starts is here. It starts here, but it doesn't have an end. So in this one picture of our roads, we have all the four things we just learned. We have points, which we can use to make take parts of a line and make a line segment. We have a line itself, which goes on forever and cannot be measured. And then we have rays, right? We have rays which have a point, just like a starting point, just like a line segment, but it does not have an end point. It goes on forever. And we use these not only in geometry, but city skylines a lot. And we're going to go through that right now. So let's try to use what we just learned. In the next video, we will be making some off-ramps and entry ramps. And then you guys can use what you learned about points and lines, line segments and rays to make really nice roads.